The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Pennsylvania High School Football Report podcast. I'm Brian Linder. I'm here with Dan Sostek and Eric Epler. Dan, let them hear your voice.
Hey.
Eric, let them hear you speak.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
So now you guys know what they sound like as we go through the podcast. If you're a longtime listener, like Carolyn Fortney is, you already know what they sound like. Guys, let's just start it off. Epler's checking in from vacation.
I am.
Where you at, Ep?
I'm down somewhere near the Chesapeake Bay. But I don't want all the I don't want to disclose the exact location, because there's a bunch of haters out there.
How's the fishing?
Sharky, put it that way.
Yeah, what's up with all the sharks this year?
I don't know. They're coming closer.
I think
they smell blood.
It's viral marketing. They're gonna reboot Jaws eventually, so maybe they're setting that up because they reboot everything. So it's only a matter of time before you get Jaws 2025 or whatever.
Epler, you got a pretty nice boat out there, right?
Yeah, it's a 26-footer. We just repowered with a brand new Suzuki 300, big boy, running well. It's quiet as hell. It's nice, but I need a raise, just so you know, to afford it. So it's going good. It's going good. Everything's good. Crab pots are out. They're soaking right now. See what we can get here. I'm gonna head out in about 2 hours and fetch them, and maybe take the kiddies a little tubing as well in the bay. So yeah, got a full day planned.
How far out do you go on that 26-footer?
We've been out 20 some miles.
Nah.
But the guys, I mean, there's boats. There's guys next door. The next door guy is a 36-footer. He goes out to the canyons like 40 miles. The other guy goes out up to 80. There was a guy just came home 2 nights ago, and he was 90 miles out looking for tuna. He was out there for 18 hours, not a single bite.
Dan, you might not know, but to run those boats out there offshore like that does cost a pretty penny.
Oh yeah, I mean
it's a lot of money in fuel.
Yeah,
a lot.
And you know what else costs a lot? You end up spending a lot of money in ice
and bait. Yeah. Now you can catch some bait, but other stuff you got to buy, and it's that's pretty much
that makes up all his money by he catches enough fish to last a year and feeds himself, right? That's how it works. You have
hopefully that's how it works. Yes,
blue fish for breakfast, blue fish for lunch, blue fish for dinner.
We throw in some crabs and clammers. Go out to the bay, jump in. So
Epler,
yeah.
I promise, guys, we'll get to football in a minute. But Epler, I watch a lot of fishing videos. I'm in a lot of fishing groups on Facebook and stuff. And there was one guy who's doing offshore fishing who took a photo. Somebody had a trike 40 miles off the coast, and they were just talking about how insane that is.
Yeah, well, those are like the big road. They've got a captain. They've got 2 guys helping them, and they're hooking these.
But it's essentially
500-pound sailfish.
But it's essentially a pontoon, though. I mean, you don't want to carry that thing out there.
No. There was a guy out actually at the wreck, and it was 5 or 6 miles, but that's enough. I mean, you could barely see the bridge, you barely see the inlet, and he was out there on a pontoon boat, and I'm like, in like 6-8 foot rollers.
Well, yeah. Here's the other crazy one, and I'll send you the video. I promise it's real. There's these 2 guys I follow. Well, I see their videos all the time on Reels on Facebook. Mm-hmm. They fish off these sea-doos.
Yeah.
And they go way far out. And in the latest video, they actually drove from Florida to the Bahamas on these sea-doos, and they call it perfect weather. But I'm just thinking, if you don't catch perfect weather, also, if you've ever been on a cruise, Dan and Eric, like I've been to cruises to Mexico and I've been to cruises to Bahamas. And you go like from Charleston to the Bahamas, it's significantly deeper through there. It's like, it's like Titanic deep going through there.
The problem with that is when you're in the Bahamas, you go offshore, you basically drop from about 35 or 40 feet to about 1,000 feet
Yeah.
in about 100-mile stretch. It
Yeah.
just drops off. So if you get bad weather, the waves get really, really bad. The Atlantic typically is not great either from Virginia up. If you get wind, because you get a lot of wind. But yeah, you can do it. I mean, but you got to get to Bimini before you get to Bahamas from Florida. If you're coming over, it's Bimini Island. Well, it's a bunch of islands, but it's about 2 hours by jet ski. You can do it, and then you got another hour or so to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
To Nassau or Big Key or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
man. When you're out there on a little bobber, I don't want
But
to
if
do.
a storm kicks up,
Oh yeah, you
nobody
run.
might not ever know whatever happened to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
You disappear off the face of the earth.
That's
So,
why I just do the little the trips, right? Where you just go on a boat for a day and
Yeah, you go on a party. You go on a party blaster where there's 50 guys and you're all dropping lines, and
Yeah.
but you usually catch something on those
yeah,
things too.
because the last time I did that, because I'm going to Cape Cod this year. The last time I did was when I was like 13 in Cape Cod. We got a real big bluefish that fed us the whole trip. So
Yeah,
that's about as far as I go with that. Other than that, I just do some bay fishing for fun, not for food. So
I like
yeah,
the big cruises, but again, I've never got caught in bad weather on those things. So I've seen some nightmare scenarios where people,
yeah. You got to pick the right day. I mean, it's not like I said, we haven't been too far off. I think 20-25 miles is fine. You can find tuna out there. You get big blues, you get big rockfish. You can catch what you want. Sea bass out there. There's a few wrecks not far from us, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles. That's plenty for us. I don't,
you
I'm
can.
not a good enough captain to go out 45, 50 miles
Mm,
and there. I'm just not.
yeah, 5 or 6 miles out, if something happens,
Right.
you're still in some trouble. So and look, you can catch big fish 5 miles off the coast. You can catch 40 miles off the coast. But
Exactly.
anyway, that's the vacation mode, guys. You hear us in the vacation mode talking about the sun and the surf and fishing. Look, there's some football news going on this week. Obviously, locally here, we're in Central Pennsylvania. Uh, uh, Sean Lee Jr. from Harrisburg he committed to your Pitt Panthers. What
Woo!
thinking about this, Dan? How you feeling?
well, I think we're all assuming, although you don't know because they don't have the deepest quarterback. They actually do have a lot of quarterbacks on the roster. They don't have. Not sure if they have any good ones. They've got a lot of quarterbacks on the roster. But I imagine just based on his tweet where he was tagging Archie Collins and Corey Sanders that he's going to be playing defensive back there. Corey Sanders was just promoted to he's Pitt's safety coach. He was just promoted to the assistant head coach there. So I imagine that from everything I've heard from people in Pittsburgh, they love Sean. They I think there's a contingent of people up there that think he's sort of a hidden gem because of his profile as a quarterback that people might not have caught on to, how talented of a cornerback or a defensive back he's going to end up being at the next level. I mean, you look at his dad. His dad had 6 interceptions for Penn State in the '90s, so he's obviously got the genes, and he had some big plays during the season at defensive back too. And we've all seen him play. We know the type of athlete he is. We know the type of he's just a winner too. He's just one of those kids that knows how to win, has a penchant for the big moment. And Pitt's always done a good job with their defensive backs. Obviously, guys like DeMar Hamlin, MJ Devonshire going back there. They always seem to send guys to the next level. Going back to Darrell Revis, Hank Poteet too, a while back. There's it's a I think a good place from a place we'll play immediately. And I know again as a Pitt person, um, one of the criticisms is that Pitt doesn't do as well as they should maybe in state, and they don't really get a ton of Central PA kids anymore. But they've dipped into District 3 the last 3 years and gotten 3 pretty good players. 2 years ago, Kenny Johnson, who's I think primed to have a really big year for them this year. Last year they get Jules Goff, who I imagine is going to see playing time as a freshman, and now they go back to District 3 again and get Sean Lee Jr. So, I think they're doing good job kind of trying to find the guys that, might not end up at Penn State or Notre Dame or Wisconsin from District 3 and bringing them in because those are three pretty good District 3 players that they've got. And I think Shawnee's going to have, if he ends up a pick, because you know how recruiting is now. He's obviously a Penn State legacy, and I would never rule out if Penn State comes offering later in his recruitment if he flips because he's still a class of 2025 guy. But really glad for him because he's always been a great kid to deal with. I know Epp has talked to him a lot after games. Just always a really good quote. Really stand up kid. Win or lose. Never really gives himself too much credit. Always talking about just winning, and I'm not surprised he ended up at a Power 5 school.
No, me either, Dan. I mean, we talked about Sean a couple of weeks ago on the podcast too about his potential moving forward to the next level, and obviously the his position was certainly defensive back. I mean, he showed so much promise, and he's got all those intangibles and lift and range and speed. And what I like too is that he doesn't shy away from collisions.
No,
and runs.
I think if you gave him the choice, he would just play cornerback. Right? If
probably, yeah.
I think he loves playing cornerback. So
I mean, it's one of those situations too. You're always like, you like young baseball teams, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. Your best player is pitching and he's playing shortstop,
yeah.
and then he's going behind the plate when your second best pitcher's there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I mean, he's kind of a jack of all trades. You can put him anywhere too. Even if he bulked up, he probably could be a really, really, really good safety. But right now, he's a great cornerback, and I think that's the right spot for him. I don't know, Danny. I know Pitt's just got two guys, right, in 2025 from PA.
Yeah.
The offensive lineman out of TJ. I can't think of his name right there. Schefter. Yeah. But some other squads are obviously making inroads too. Duke's had a pretty good run.
Yeah.
I think they've got 2 or 3 of our top 25 guys. And if I'm not mistaken, I think all but 3 or 4 of the top 25 guys are locked in now to we talked about Zollers obviously a couple weeks ago at Mizzou. And the one guy that hasn't been locked in yet obviously is Lex Cyrus, which we talked a tremendous amount about. I guess the crystal ball says Penn State, but I don't know. Could Pitt come back into the picture for him for Lex? I mean, I think that would be a really good fit. I think for him, but again, I know he's got 20 plus offers. There's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
The unique thing about Lex, he hadn't done a ton of talking about.
No, he hasn't.
It'll be interesting to see. Obviously an explosive player. And Hannah had some struggles early in his career. Feels like they might have turned a corner. So you might even see more out of him this year. I feel like this is the year that we might see the full Lex Cyrus, what he can do and what he can be as an athlete. So that'll be fun. From Susquehanna Township. Also in recruiting news, guys, Messiah Mickens, he's the only 26 commit for Penn State right now. That may have changed since I last read. I think he's still the only one, but he's still getting some offers. Got Missouri. He just got an SEC offer from Missouri. And listen, we brought up Matt Zollers, and we know Messiah's pretty much locked in, but Matt Zollers is rolling in a brand new Hellcat. That was, you guys didn't go look on social media. NIL has changed the world, and look, I don't have anything against it. I'm glad for him. We talked about this before, but he got a pretty awesome car, nice Hellcat. You never know what could be coming. Like Dan said, you never know with recruiting. But yeah, Missouri, I think he got another offer too here recently. But that'll be interesting to watch for us. And we've all talked about this being a big season for Messiah as well. But I think he's an interesting guy to watch this year. He might be one of the more interesting guys to see what he's going to do this year and what's going on with him.
Yeah, I think we've talked about we've kind of mentioned that a decent amount, right? That this is such a big year for Messiah in terms of just kind of reestablishing himself. Like, who is it that said y'all must have forgot? Was that Roy Jones or I forget? Yeah, it was Roy Jones Jr. This might be a you all must have forgot season for Messiah just because last year was so uneven, and he went from being the freshman that everyone knew about but was still kind of splitting carries to being the central focus point of a scouting report while being a Penn State commit. It was a big jump for him. So obviously, I don't think he has to prove anything. He's still one of the top 250 recruits in the class 2026 in the country. That's pretty darn good, and he's got a ticket to Happy Valley. But I imagine that he's going to be playing with that chip on his shoulder, and um, I mean, every time we hop on here, we just talk about the Harrisburg team and how excited we are to see him. But it's the big story in the Mid Penn this year, right? It's just we don't really know what it's going to look like because usually when you get when we get this collection of talent, it's not at a public store. It hasn't been for a couple years, and like this is an all-star group of kids on that team. So it's a huge year for Messiah, and I think it's interesting, right? Because like, yeah, recruits do every now and then tweet out when they get offers after they've already committed, but you don't have to, right? You don't have to. You don't have to tweet out that you're getting it. So I don't think it's in any danger of decommitting or anything like that. But it might be, something that these kids are kind of told to do now to put pressure on these teams to be like, hey, you better not recruit over me. You better not go start like dipping your toes into other running backs in this class, or I've got other options. So, yeah. So it's I think Jordan Hill coming to Penn State will definitely probably be the anchor that keeps him down there. But Messiah Mickens and Matt Zollers would be pretty fun too.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
I'll tell you what's interesting, Ep and Dan, is, before you get to that 2026 class, obviously these 2025 kids, Ep kind of mentioned it where guys are going, but looking at 247 rankings, Matt Zollers is ranked 1. He's going to Missouri. Andrew Olesh, the big tight end from Southern Lehigh, who, has got some big time offers. I mean, including, I think, Penn State, and Alabama, and Georgia, schools like that. He's the second ranked player on that list. He's uncommitted. Now, after him, you got Zahir Mathis, the big defensive end from Imhotep's going to Ohio State. Max Roy, the big defensive tackle from St. Joe's, going to Michigan. Cameron Smith, the linebacker from St. Joe's, going to Duke. Isaiah West, the running back from St. Joe's, going to Ohio State. Michael Carroll from Central Bucks East to Alabama.
Javry Coleman.
You notice what school's missing in that top 7? Penn State.
Yeah.
Now they have some. I mean, Lexus.
Well, if you go to Rivals, they have Alex Tash, who's number 7. So he's a pretty darn good player.
Well, 247, he's at 12. I like Alex.
Yeah.
They got Brett Era, who I think is really interesting. He's at 10 on 247. Deshaun Burnett, who I really love from Amani Christian, they got him at linebacker too. He's at 9. I mean, linebacker, they got some good linebackers. But it's interesting to me that, and here's another, Anthony Sakas, 11 on the 247 list. He's a Notre Dame kid. Penn State's, I think they got some good players here, but they're, again, win the state, you're not at the top of that, they're not at the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like, I think we've kind of mentioned it before, but it just feels like with the way recruiting works now, Pennsylvania, it's not a it's the top guys are just going to go to the top school. It's really hard to get the football's so good in this area now. It's just you're going to get the top guys going for the top money at the top programs. So, I mean, Zahir Mathis, we got to see him a couple of years ago, and he's obviously only getting better. He's going to be a force at Ohio State, I imagine. But yeah, what is it? Tash, Burnett, Tyke Hayes, Brady O'Hara, Xavier Thomas. That's a pretty good haul for Penn State. But I know that if anyone here knows Penn State fans, they're never gonna be happy till they get that those top guys like they did when they landed Micah Parsons. So, but yeah, I mean these Pennsylvania classes, we keep saying it, just keep getting. It feels like they just keep getting more and more stacked each and every year, and then you go to 2026, they've got the only top. Mickens is the only committed kid in the top 10, so still a lot of room in that class to Um,
You're
uh,
letting the you're letting the Buckeyes come into Philadelphia and pull the 2 top guys. That's pretty brutal.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if you got it. We talked about him a little bit, but uh, in 2026, at the one guy that came out of nowhere is Joey O'Brien, this LaSalle the athlete who wasn't even ranked now 4-star, top 80, and there's a lot to be had next year as well. Obviously, our two big hosses on the line from the Mid Ten, and um, but yeah, the there are going to be a lot of big name coaches coming through the Keystone State the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta imagine too that Penn State's still pushing for Roy, because I don't know if Roy's actually committed yet to Michigan, but at all signs point to him. But you gotta imagine Ohio State's coming after him too. Um, I'm still not sure why Tuckey Hayes is 3-star, but beyond that, but yeah,
He's a
but
foreign
you're right.
rivals.
Well, is he 4? Okay, then
Yeah,
that's acceptable there. But yeah, I think you've got a lot of teams that are butting in. I mean, Syracuse picked off a couple of these guys,
yeah,
and obviously I think 2 or 3 from the top 25 or 30 that are in. So Penn State definitely had an unbelievable year last year. Picking off our guys, but yeah, it's a different world now, and I think too, to try to get your hands on these guys before the quote unquote NIL regulations sort of come into play, which I don't know, could be any minute now,
yeah.
really. And that gets set up. But that won't be perfect either, in the beginning. So they'll tweak that for years and years. But anyway, yeah, it's been a pretty all around effort by schools coming in and pilfering our top guys.
Like you said, Duke's got 3 guys committed in that, which is
Yeah, I think Duke's
They
got
just
2 or
landed
3,
Bradley
and
Gompers too.
Use, and obviously Kentucky's got their mitts on McDevitt's QB, and
Cuse is interesting now because I know they got Fran Brown in there and they had a couple guys jump on board, but I feel like the last couple weeks I've seen a couple guys kind of back out of commitments there. So
Well, they
yeah,
lost their coach to A&M.
yeah, their
This,
coach went to A&M.
yeah.
so
But and the other thing in it, like that, uh, maybe it's just sometimes things just work like this, but these like the top players in the state. There are not as many from Western PA as there have been in years past. It's a lot of Philly kids and a lot of like Central PA kids.
Mhm.
The 2025, you've got Zahir, you've got Zollers, you got Saka, you got Jabri Coleman, Max Roy, Michael Carroll. You have to go all the way. Like probably the best Pittsburgh prospects are Tash, Burnett, and Hayes. Don't get me wrong; those are three awesome players. But I think sometimes this stuff is cyclical, right? Sometimes you get more of.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just get these big classes of Philly kids that all grew up together and all kind of iron sharpened iron a little bit, and they all kind of end up being in another year the Whippeal will end up producing 5 Hall of Famers or something like that. But even next, then the 2026 is obviously the big mid 10 year. Then you've also got some LaSalle kids, and then you've got some of the PA kids. But um, the next year, the 2026 thing about the Whippeal kids is the top Whippeal prospects are all from the smaller schools in the Whitfield. They're from Fort Cherry, Monte Christian, Westinghouse, and Steel Valley. So it's almost like these smaller schools are uh, are having a moment in the Whitfield over the traditional big powerhouses. Which again, probably just kind of a random little tidbit, but um, I think we've said it before, but the job that some of those coaches are doing, specifically Dante Green at Westinghouse. It has to be one of the best coaching jobs in the state the last few years, given how tough it is to build a program in the city league down there. So, yeah, a lot of these smaller schools are kind of uh, producing the biggest talent in the Whitfield the last couple of years.
the one nice thing too about having coaches who have been around for dozens of years, like the Whippeal has, and now we've got a few guys, but even guys in Philly who've been around, and maybe they've been at different programs, they've been around is the connections that they have,
Yeah,
and the relationship they have with these college coaches that get these kids in,
yeah,
that get these kids noticed and this and that. I mean, this is the biggest thing, and I always say this too, and I know. Listen, I'm not saying coaches don't work hard; they work extremely hard. But part of your job is getting kids to move on,
Yeah.
and you've got to commit to doing that. I see a lot of it in the Mid Penn Conference in different sports
Yeah.
that don't do anything to get their players to the next level. And that to me is not just wrong. It's flat out, why are you coaching?
Yeah.
Why are you coaching? And listen, I know you got weight sessions going on 3 days a week and this and that, but your time should be spent picking up the phone, sending emails, sending out tapes or whatever, and saying, Coach, all you gotta do is email, say, Coach, take a look at this guy. Just take a look at him. You got 90 seconds, take a look at this film. That's it. That's all it takes. A lot of times that's all it takes. And college coaches too, a lot of recruits moms in different sports, not specifically not most football, but they'll say, well, how do I get noticed, this and that? And they'll say, well, I feel like I'm bothering the coach, or he's going to get upset because my kid has sent 5 emails over the course of 2 weeks. And I'm like, you don't understand. College coaches love that because they don't have to travel. They don't have to come to see your kid. You're sending it to them. They love that. And then when they have 5 quick minutes, they can see 5 or 6 kids on video and just see, okay, maybe they don't stack up. Little Jimmy's 5'5". He's not going to play offensive lineman at Alabama. Okay. But that's 90 seconds that the coaches love.
Yeah.
And so I always say, listen, it does not matter, but that's a job the coaches should be doing, or assistant coaches if you send a coordinator out.
And honestly, I think one of the people that does the best job, it's why he's been there for so long, obviously, is Jeff Wechter at McDevitt. He gets these kids scenes. And that's what I was going to say about the 2025 and 2026 class. There are probably some kids on McDevitt we're not even talking about. And it happens every year at that school where the kids are kind of not even on these lists that end up getting high Division I offers because Coach Wechter knows these coaches. He knows what they're looking for. He points them in the right direction. And you look no further than someone like Tyshawn Russell, who came into his senior year, kind of an afterthought, and is now an SEC football player.
Exactly.
It just takes these coaches who know their players and know these coaches kind of pointing these guys in the right direction. So there are always going to be players like that too. And that's part of the excitement, right? Is seeing who these next guys, these kind of unknown players are. And right as we were talking about this, by the way, Messiah Mickens tweeted out home with a picture of him in Penn State gear. So he must be listening in on podcasts to be like, no, I'm still going to Penn State. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You guys, you kind of made me think of something too. A lot of times when we do the rankings, I get kids will inbox me and say, how do I get more offers, or what do I got to do to get an offer, whatever. And the answer I always give them is ask your coach. Your coach sees you more than anybody else. Your high school coach sees you more than anybody else. They
he knows how you're going to game.
Now, you when I say that, you got to have some sort of realistic, you got to be able to be honest with yourself. If you don't meet the height and weight, a lot of times it doesn't matter if you ran for 3,000 yards or if you had 150 tackles. If you're 5'9", 5'10", there's just not a lot of division. There's not a lot of linebackers at Ohio State. I think the number is 0 who are 5'10".
Right.
So you got to be honest with yourself a little bit and realistic. But ask your coach, what do you need to do? Is it your grades? You probably already know, if you're an athlete, what you have to get better at, or what your realistic expectations can be. You should always dream and reach for the stars, but when we get to the recruiting game, you got to be realistic sometimes and capture those. I see a lot of coaches say stuff, like a Division II coach is calling a kid or whatever, and they don't answer the phone, up until past signing day. Now they want to talk to him again. So you got to be realistic with yourself. At the same time, you're right. There are some coaches who, hey, I went on the rant about the stats last year. If you're coaching and turning in your stats, that's like a minimum thing.
Yeah.
Where you can get your name out. At PennLive, we know we have a huge platform. You get your name on PennLive, a lot of people see it. if you're coaching it and turning in your stats, I mean, that's the least you can do. That would be an alarm bell to me, and so there are kids. I think there are kids who don't have realistic expectations, and they need to be real with themselves about where they can go and how they can do it. That's a difficult discussion to have with a young person because you do want them to dream. But at the same time, too, there are coaches who aren't doing what they probably should be doing for kids. So it's you got to figure out what your situation is. Is it you that's not being realistic with yourself, or is it your coach who's not doing everything he can for you in that battle? So that's a bigger discussion, one we've been down the road on before. But you know what, guys? We're right at 30 minutes. That's all we're contractually obligated to do. And Epler's on vacation,
That's right.
and I think we got a podcast.
Yep. I think
Right?
you're good.
Dan Celtics won. We can mention that.
Yeah.
Hey.
Got really nervous after they lost one game.
Yeah. It's not nervous. It's I was raised as a superstitious sports.
Jason has done his Kobe Bryant imitation. He's done his Kevin Garnett imitation.
Let the guy enjoy his moment.
He's being everybody but Jason Tatum, is what I've been noticing from all the videos on social media.
This TikTok. Let the guy have some fun.
Come on, Dan. It is odd. It's almost like he practiced, like taking what they did after they won.
All right. So when you if I go on a date,
scripted, yes.
if I go on a date, I'm practicing my opening lines. I'm not going in. I mean, it's the same thing as that. You don't want to. You sometimes look silly when you.
I don't know. I don't know that you're going to go into and be like, you're good, and you're dead.
No. But next podcast is the first 5 minutes. We should find out what Dan's opening lines are.
Yeah.
They're not great.
And we'll run through and then also before the fall, we've got to get the Pump the Brakes with Dan Sostek podcast, which is the one I've dreamed up, where Dan can take his unique ability to take everything good and condense it into something really bad and within 5 minutes. And that'll be our quick podcast. We'll do it 3 times a week. Pump the Brakes.
Wasn't Dan supposed to watch that movie with John Travolta that was set in Harrisburg?
What?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
lucky
didn't watch it.
numbers.
I was too busy watching. What I forget what I watched. We don't need to do my movie corner.
You got to watch Lucky Numbers.
Oh yeah, that was what you told me to watch. The one right down on the North Shore or whatever.
All right, do your part next time.
The North Shore.
Whatever that it's called. I did watch Celtics Pride after Celtic Pride after the Celtics won, and that is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
But I don't know if you remember how that movie ends. What the cliffhanger is that they're about to kidnap Deion Sanders. They're trying to set up a sequel for Patriots fans kidnapping Deion Sanders, but unfortunately, the movie with like a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes and made no money, did not get a sequel greenlit. So,
I wasn't much for Celtic Pride. Great White Hype was I like that one.
Yeah, there's some good basketball movies back in the day, but not Celtic Pride.
Are we done here? And we need to tell everybody how to find us on social media. Are we still recording?
You're still recording.
All right. Can they hear you, Megan?
No.
Oh, well, hey, you know what else we got to say real quick? Shout out to ourselves. Shout out to Megan, our producer, and Dan. We won another Keystone Award, second for podcast. Megan does a great job.
Not just sports podcasts. So
yeah. So we won another. We're the only year-round high school football podcast in Pennsylvania, and fishing and movies and everything else and NBA. But we won another award, won a Keystone, second in that. So we're grateful for that. Big shout out to UPMC too for sponsoring it, so that Megan does all the work on the back end. We get on here and jump along, and we're the only year-round, multi-time award-winning podcast, guys. How you feel about that?
I'm happy.
I'm excited because the last Keystone Awards had a pretty good lunch spread, so I'm very excited to get some more free food. That's whenever we win an award, that's my first question: is do I get some free food out of this? And I think we do, so I'm excited.
I'm looking forward to the company car and the raise. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
we'll have what our faces on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, tell them how to find you real quick on social media.
I'm at 3Jacker. on
Dan
X.
_ Sostek. Also, R.I.P. Donald Sutherland. That's sad. Good editor.
Yes, rest in peace, Professor.
And Mr. X from JFK.
Oh no, Professor Dave Jennings from Animal House.
Oh yeah,
Favorite college.
he's in every movie. He's the guy who talks to Costner on the bench in JFK.
Look, we're working overtime. I'm at Sports by B Linder on X or Twitter. I call it Twitter. And be sure to check out PennLive for all we got there. We're slow rolling out the spring all-star teams. Tom DeMartini's lacrosse teams are up. He's down at the Jersey Shore having some fun. Till next week, we'll see you guys then.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.